we're going to run through the Romanian deadlift, also known as the RDL. But before we do that, let's run through the setup, the movement, any alternative exercise that you can be using, as well as some injury prevention. Let's run through the setup of the RDL. So unlike the deadlift, we are going to set this one up inside of the rack. Now, the J hooks for this one do want to be set up with your arms completely straight, just slightly lower than what your arms would be holding the bar. Reason being is because when you set the J hooks up, you want to be able to grab hold of the bar, pick it up, and just take a step back, making sure that there's clearance and the bar's not going to hit against the edge of the J hooks as you walk out from the rack. The last thing you want is swinging that bar, catching it, knocking it, becoming unstable, either injuring yourself or somebody else that's around you. So set the J hooks up just slightly lower so you don't have to shrug it up or tiptoe up to walk out, and then you should be able to just walk and take a step back. Like with all movements when it comes down to setting up a bar, make sure that when you are loading your plates, you are using the safety collars when it comes down to keeping your weights in place, because the last thing that you want is to unrack this bar and that weight slides straight off the end of the collar. Right, preparing the area around where you're going to be lifting. So make sure there is nothing in the way of trip hazard, because you will be walking out of the rack with this bar. So bags, plates, anything else that's surrounding the area, make sure that it's out the way of you or anybody else that's in your vicinity around you too. So last couple of steps to get you set up. It's a lot easier than the deadlift to get set up with the RDL, but these are a few things that you need to remember. So J hooks set up to the correct height. Place the bar into the rack with no plates on the bar to begin with. Do not lift in running shoes. So take your running shoes off and lift in your socks or barefoot, or unless you have platform specific shoes, so something that's nice and flat, that's got a low profile sole on the bottom of the shoe. This would be great for doing anything like deadlifts, RDLs, leg press, any kind of single leg squat work too. A good flat base in the shoe is required. Don't lift in running shoes. You've got a lot of unstable base underneath. It's going to roll your ankle. You're going to have weight distribution issues. Not the thing that you need to be doing when you're looking for lifting load, specifically something like an RDL or a deadlift, where a good solid base is required. So for the purpose of this video, I am going to be performing this because I'm recording a lot of videos right now, but we're going to take a step up to the bar. Bar wants to be set up just slightly lower than what it would be if you were stood straight upright with it. So a little bit like your deadlift, you want to be central to the bar. You want to be just outside of shoulder width when you're holding the bar. And when you grip hold, you should be able to pick the bar up, take a step back, and have clearance from the rack all around you so that nothing's going to be in the way. Make sure you step far enough away from the rack so that when you do bend, the plates aren't going to hit anything or anything else that's surrounding the area. Now, for the purpose of performing this movement, I have removed the plate so that basically I'm not breathless whilst I'm trying to show you how to do this movement. So, and you can now see also what's going on with the bar, and there's no plates in the way with regards to where my hand positioning is and how I step away from the rack. So approach the bar central. When you do so, feet want to be just underneath the bar when you're inside of the rack, holding just outside of shoulder width. So you'll see this, the knurlings on the edge of the bar. You want to be holding that so that you've got a nice firm grip. When you do so, double overhand. Now, double overhand, thumbs gripping underneath the bar. This is going to give you the best grip. You don't have to hook grip the bar. That's a whole other video and a whole other explanation. So when you do, you're going to take a slight bend at the hip, grab a hold of the bar, and as you pick up, you'll see now that the bar's cleared the J hooks. You can take a nice easy step back, and there's going to be nothing in your way, and you're not going to catch the rack on the way out. Hopefully you can see, because I am stood side on. But that being said, feet are shoulder width apart, and I wouldn't be in running shoes. Shoulder width apart feet, shoulder width apart hands. Either side of your quads with your hands and you're gripping the bar. Retract those shoulder blades, pull them down, a lot like you do on the deadlift. Once your shoulder blades are retracted and pulled down, we're going to bend from the hip. So we're going to push the glutes back towards the mirror at this point, keeping a nice straight back. We're going to keep the knees over the ankles. So as we do so, the bar should travel down, close to the line of the leg, pushing the glutes back towards the mirror. And when you get to that point where you know you can't stretch any further, because if you do, either your lower back's going to round, which we don't want, or your shoulders are going to drop, which also we don't want. So we keep the shoulder blades nice and tight, we keep the hips nice and neutral, not letting those hips round. This is going to keep you nice and safe in this position. Nice neutral back. Bar wants to stay nice and close to the shins, and as you come back up, you're going to push the glutes forwards, towards the rack. So just to quickly talk you through the movement pattern once again, retract the shoulder blades, pushing the glutes back towards the mirror, keep the knees over the ankles, and that bar wants to sit just in front of the shins, not grazing the shins, but just in front of the shins. And as you get to the maximum stretch position, don't round the lower back to get any deeper, don't drop the shoulders to get any deeper, keep a nice straight back, push the glutes forwards towards the rack to come back up. So now that we're running through the movement section, there's a couple of things I want to show you without the bar that you can do that helps you program the movement so that you can get better performing that range of movement regarding the RDL. So the first thing I would like you to do is standing nice and neutral, put your flat palms on your quads. When you do so, keep your knees over your ankles. So if you look from a side profile, the knee will not travel forwards and it will not travel backwards. We're not doing a stiff leg RDL, which means trying to keep the knees near enough on a soft block. The whole of the video, you'll see my knees bend, but you'll see my hips travel backwards. Hands on your quads and just follow the line of your leg as you go to bend from the hip. Once you get to this point, your hands want to run vertically straight down, and you'll get to a point where you're at maximal stretch. And when you're at this point, that will be the end range of where you want to move. If you get any lower, you're now starting to round your lower back. We don't want that, so we'll pull that back in. If you go lower with your shoulders, you've now decompressed your shoulders. That's going to create upper back problems. Let's get rid of that. Tighten the shoulders back up. So as you can see, I do that, it pulls my hands back up. This is going to give me around about mid-shin height end range of movement. If I was to have the bar in my hands, that's about where I want to stop. Now to come back up, there's a couple of things that you can do. You can push down into the ground if that's a cue that works for you. Another good cue that you can use is drive your hips forwards. So as you go to come back up, push your hips forwards into the bar as you're traveling back up. Now, what you don't want to do if you're going to use the cue to push your hips forwards is overextend. So you don't want to hyperextend into the bar as you bring that bar back up. The glutes do not need that level of activation. They're already activated in this position here, all the way through to here. That there does nothing for the glutes and does too much to the lower back. We're trying to eradicate any kind of issue that's going to create you lower back problems. That will create one. So again, hands on the quads, travel down, pushing your glutes back. If a good cue for you to push your glutes forwards, then use the cue to push your glutes forwards to drive back up. We want to be in a completely vertical position, not hyperextending, and that bar wants to sit just in front of you, not rounding the shoulders, keep the shoulders back. So you might have a slight extension in the hip to keep that weight in front of you. Again, perfectly fine, because at this point, you're vertically loaded, you're over your center of mass, and that weight wants to stay around the center of mass through the center of your foot here. If that bar is hanging in front of you, it means that you've let your shoulder blades go. So you want to tighten those back up again by theoretically feeling like you're bending that bar around your shins. So when you do, you pull it back in, it's going to keep that bar nice and close over your center of mass, allowing you to use your glutes, driving forwards to pull that bar back up. Right, a few alternative movements that you can be doing to help with the RDL or program the movement so that you could start performing the RDL. So a leg press can help. It's going to get you into the movement pattern of pushing and driving. It doesn't replicate, that's more of a squat pattern movement, doesn't replicate the RDL as such, but the driving portion of it can really help. Next, just use the bar. The bar is enough to get you going. These Olympic bars are 20 kilograms. Now, that is enough to get performing the movement so that you can teach yourself what it feels like when you've got a weight in front of you, kept in the correct position to bend all the way through that movement, keeping a nice neutral spine, nice neutral neck, using the hamstrings and glutes to fire forwards to pull that bar back up. Now, what speed should you travel at? Because this is part of how you should perform this movement. Again, if you can control the weight on the way down, perfect. If you need to be able to fire this back up, be careful how hard you fire back up. Reason being is we don't want to create that hyperextension scenario. So you might be able to be driving those hips forward really powerfully, which can help with sports performance. But if that's not the case, just try and perform this movement as controlled as possible. Just try and eliminate any other possibility of lower back problems or center spine problems. So if the RDL with the barbell feels a little bit too complicated, you can use dumbbells to perform the RDL. The setup is very, very similar, but you just don't have the restriction of having the bar and trying to bend that bar around you, just keep everything engaged. The dumbbells you can kind of place at a 45-degree angle around the side, which take away that need to try and keep the shoulder blades pulled back constantly. You will still need to engage the shoulders, but you won't need to kind of drive that bar around and feel like you're bending it around as much. And lastly, the super bands. Now, I did explain this in the deadlift video, so if you haven't seen that, you can go and check that out. But I'm going to quickly run through now what it means to use the super band to kind of pre-engage that movement and teach yourself how to use your hamstrings and glutes to drive against the band. So you're going to set yourself up inside the band. Now the band wants to be around about central to your hip. And what you're going to do is you're going to take a step away. You secure the band by looping it around and threading it through itself, creating an open loop on this end. You're going to walk away, so it creates tension against the band at this point. So enough so it feels like it's pulling your hips backwards. You might be leaning forwards just to try and counterbalance some of that weight at this point, but that's not a bad thing, because what it's going to teach you to do is load the weight into your feet correctly. So if I lift my toes up, it wants to pull me backwards at this point, off balance. If I go too far forwards, but at this point, nice neutral, hips being pulled back by the band, this is going to help me break the hip at this point. So breaking the hip, not breaking the hip, but breaking at the hip, pulls the hip backwards. Keep your knees over your ankles. And to drive against the band, this is what I mean by teaching yourself to do the movement pattern. As you come up, you push that band towards your hands. Back down again. The band pulls you backwards. Keep your back nice and neutral. Knees over your ankles, straight line, and push into the band to stand back up. This will engage your hamstrings and your glutes, teaching you to drive against the band, which helps you then pull that bar up, doing the RDL. And last but not least, injury prevention. Now, a lot of people avoid this movement, just like they do with the deadlift, because they feel like it can trigger some lower back problems. Chances are, if you have lower back problems, it isn't because of the RDL. You weren't doing the RDL to begin with, it's because of something that you're already doing in life, like maybe sitting too long, being bent at 45 degrees, lack of core stability, lack of core strength. There's a lot of other factors that go into why this might cause a problem, but get this right and you'll start to solve a lot of those problems, and a lot of those pains and complications won't be part of life anymore. So what do you need to be doing when it comes to injury prevention with an RDL or something like a deadlift? Two very similar movements. So you can use the mobility video that is in the playlist that covers everything from the waist down with regards to mobilizing legs for a leg day session. It will get things like your hips, your knees, your hamstrings, your quads, your ankles, your calves, everything warmed up and moving correctly, pre-engaged as well. So nothing should be causing any complications. But the biggest thing when you come down to doing an RDL is hamstring tightness and core stability. So we want to make sure that the hamstrings are loosened up before we perform this. So use the bar and go through the movement pattern just to get that range of movement in, making sure that those hamstrings are lengthened enough so that they're not unevenly distributing weight. You maybe got one side stronger than the other or weaker than the other that's pulling more or so. Be observant, be aware of what your body's doing. The other thing is knowing what the hips are doing. So the hips also need to be active, but they need to be open too. So if you've got tightness in one side, you might find that it's twisting you in a different way. You might find that you're unevenly balanced from left to right, up and down. Try and figure out what's causing the complication and then do some work around that to try and open that area up. That's going to then take away any imbalance created by an RDL. Like I say, these movements, they're not problem causing, they're exposing of the weaknesses. So if we've got a weak hip, one side stronger than the other, we might be positioned slightly wrong. So left hip might be tilting back, right hip might be tilting forwards. All of these are going to be exposing of what these movements do for you. These are not the complication and the problem. These are the solution to the problem. We just need to figure out what's causing the problem to begin with. So look to your hamstrings, look to your quads, look to the glutes, specifically the piriformis in the glute. So that's a diagonal muscle that runs across the glute. Open these areas up to make sure that you've got free movement to be performing any kind of leg extension, hip extension work. You won't be then restricted by the movement pattern, and this then will become a beneficial movement as you build strength over time. And last but not least, give yourself some time. These are movements that are very, very effective, very beneficial for beginners to intermediates. They also build a lot of strength, especially through sort of midlife process as well. These are movements that you're going to need to live life better later on down the line. So just remember that these are beneficial so long as you get them right and you take your time with them. So give yourself a little bit of time to learn these specifically, and these will benefit you for years to come. Hope this video has helped. I'll see you in the next one.